This episode of The Rookie Hunter is sponsored by North Arm Knives. North Arm Knives are handcrafted and sold directly through a father and son team right here in British Columbia. Choose from a selection of outdoor knives, kitchen knives, and the brand new folding knife from northarmknives.com. They ship internationally and guarantee all their work. Callie and I use their products and give them our stamp of approval. Go to northarmknives.com. Hey guys, welcome to episode 33. Today on the show we're talking to Brian Chan. A lot of you guessed who was going to be on the show today. We kind of hinted at it on Instagram, and a whole bunch of people reached out and said, "Is it Brian Chan? Is it Brian Chan?" And it certainly is. So we're very lucky to have been able to talk to him about fly fishing today. And man, he is just a wealth of knowledge. I don't know much about fly fishing. Kelly has done a bit of it, so it was cool because he just kind of went off for like 10 minutes at a time and shared so much knowledge. And yeah, this is another one of those episodes where I got to go back and kind of take some notes, but it really got me excited to get out there this year. And yeah, it just seems like it's a lot to learn. That's kind of why we're doing this whole thing. So long story short, I think we just got to get out on the lake and do some fly fishing. We're also going to be talking to Matt from Rugged Point Lodge briefly. This is all part of our spotlight on the BC Interior Sportsman Show, which is taking place April 7th through 9th. And I've said it before, but we're going to be emceeing the Saturday show, and we're looking forward to seeing some of you guys there. You can win tickets, another pair of tickets we're going to be giving away, and we haven't decided yet, but I'm going to put Kelly on the spot, and he can decide what we're going to do and how you guys can win that pair of tickets. So stay tuned for that. I know we said we were going to announce the winner of the North Arm Knives contest, and Mike from North Arm Knives has been extremely busy, and we want him to pick the winner. We could have picked it, but we thought let's let those guys do the job for us. So hang tight. We'll announce it next week. Maybe we'll just announce it through Instagram. I don't know, but we'll let people know because we want to give that thing away. We're pretty excited to find out who won. As always, if you guys don't mind going to iTunes, leaving us a rating and or a review. And you can also subscribe to the podcast. Those are the things that help us reach more people. Our website is therookieHunter.com. You can reach out to us through email, find links to our social media. All that stuff is on our website. We've got a couple of good beers. So on that note, you guys know what to do. Sit back, relax, crack a cold beer, and enjoy this episode with Brian Chan.
Squeaky.
Squeaky, cheers.
Some dub 40.
Yeah, I might have to grease these bad boys up. What is this, episode 33?
I'm starting to lose count. We're firing out episodes like crazy here.
Yeah, it's been I don't even know how many we've put out this month, but it's been good.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Chan is on the show today, and we've also got Matt from Rugged Point Lodge.
Yeah, all the folks that guessed Brian Chan, we've been hinting to this episode, and a lot of folks, everybody who guessed Brian Chan. And right. So that goes to show how well known he is in the
for sure.
province.
So yeah, we're very, I consider us very lucky to chat with him, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot from this one. So that's excellent. This is the third episode in our spotlight on the BC Interior Sportsman Show. So that's why Rugged Point Lodge is involved. They're going to be having a booth set up there, and Brian is going to be one of the presenters, and he's also going to be putting on some demos throughout the weekend and stuff like that. So should be good. If anyone's wondering why we're doing this feature on the BC Interior Sportsman Show, it's not for any financial gain or anything like that. We just feel that these events are really important. Works both ways for us. We're getting to talk to some amazing people, and we also get to promote something that we think is good. So anything we include on the show, doesn't matter if it's a sponsor or something like what we're doing now, we're doing it because it's something that we think is worth talking about and promoting. So
yeah, for sure.
That's why we're doing it.
And this event is in Kelowna, so it's in our hometown,
Yep.
and it's only the second annual event. So we want to make sure that it becomes a success. Well, it was a successful event last year, but we want to make sure it continues to grow. And if we can help that in any way, that's a bonus.
Yep, for sure.
But there's also some issues, like Jesse's going to be talking about some serious issues at that show with regards to wildlife management. So there's some key messages. The more people that go to stuff like this, the better.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm glad they reached out to us to be part of this because Tammy, Megan, and now we've got Brian and Matt here today. All awesome conversations and great contacts for us to have, and the feedback we've gotten as far as those episodes has been really good. So glad to hear everybody's enjoying it. And for anybody who's in BC, you're going to get to see him in person. Well, if you're in the Okanagan anyways. And there are opportunities to win free tickets. So this being the third episode, Kelly, I'm going to put you on the spot. How can they win these tickets?
The third episode, how can they win the tickets?
This is a fishing episode.
Well, you got to take a picture.
Okay.
Right? Of yourself fishing.
Okay.
Is there actually an answer for this, or am I just making up the rules?
You're making it up, and that's what it's going to be.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I would say, any photo of like a water body or yourself fishing or of fish, and then tag BC Interior Sportsman Show and the Rookie Hunter podcast.
Yeah, or you can send us an email too with here. Let's extend it, Kelly. You can send us a fishing story or a fishing photo, whatever you want, anything fishing related. You can either put it up on Instagram or you can send us an email. Our email address is therookieHunterPodcast@gmail.com. Easy.
Easy peasy.
2 free tickets. That's it. Cool. So we're going to be calling up Matt from Rugged here in just a minute. Kelly, there's been some stuff in the news that I think is rather positive. I have lots of questions about it, but I think it's a step in the right direction. Mm-hmm. I think you agree. So what do we got?
So first message is the BC Wildlife Federation had a petition going around. We mentioned this in the last podcast. So encouraging all the hunting fees to go back into conservation, because right now a large portion of it's going into general revenue in BC.
Yep.
So there's that, but the BC Wildlife Federation is also doing a bit of a tour through BC, and they're going to have town halls in tons of different towns like Nelson, Invermere, Kelowna, Kamloops, like Prince George, wherever. So I think the timing of this article is pretty good, and if you have questions about it, you probably go to one of those town halls, and Jesse will be there. Mm-hmm. So basically the story is based on input from stakeholders over the last few years. The government will form a new agency in the fall of 2017 with startup funds of $5 million. The agency subsequently will be supported by hunting license revenues of $9 to $10 million per year. And we know that license revenues are about $15 million per year. So that's a large portion. I think the $2.5 million that was already being donated to the Habitat Trust Fund is going to continue going there.
Okay.
But this other $9 to $10 million that was going into general revenue before is now getting funneled into this new agency, which I think is a step in the right direction.
Yeah. I think the concern that most people have, and I think we were talking about this briefly, is that this new agency will just soak up some of the funds anyways. But hopefully that's not the case. And I think we should just look at the positive side that, you know, things are moving the way that people are asking them for. And, if we still need to push harder for changes, then so be it. But step in the right direction. Sort of boring for people outside of BC to listen to, but I'm sure you've all got your own issues, whatever province or state you're in. And, all you need to do is put numbers together as far as people, and you'll get a response eventually. So, right?
Definitely. I think as a starting point, this is great. And we mentioned in previous shows that people might be more willing to pay more license fees for their tags, right? If they know that all that money is going towards conservation.
Yeah.
So I mean, your budget starts at a certain place right now. Maybe it goes up a little bit if they can increase those fees and people are willing to pay them. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Cool. Before we call Matt here, Wild Sheep Society of BC reached out to us here, and they need volunteers for sheep counts on April 8th in Spence's Bridge, which is near Kamloops.
April 8th.
Yeah.
So we'll be hosting the...
We won't be able to go, but if anybody's up in the Spence's Bridge area and wants to take part in that.
Which I believe is east of Kamloops.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So somewhat close to us. I kind of wish we were able to go.
Yeah,
but,
I know. I'd be down to do that for sure. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's enough BC talk. For anybody who wants to get in touch with Kelly and I know we've got a lot of new listeners. Our website is therookihunter.com, and all of our contact information. You can send us an email from the site. You can find all of our social media and all that stuff is there. So feel free to get in touch, and yeah, let's give Matt a call. Actually, hold on. Important piece of business we missed here. Kelly, what do we got on tap?
We have Four Winds Nectaris because it was a nice sunny spring day today. And when the sun's out, the Nectaris is out.
That's right. Perfect. All right, let's give him a call.
Hello?
Hello, is this Matt?
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. So yeah, Kelly's with me as well here.
Hey, Matt.
Hey.
Yeah,
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good.
Good. Yeah, we're finally. I'm glad we finally connected. You guys were in the States the last time we were trying to get in touch with you.
Yeah, we were in Washington at Spokane. We were doing a trade show.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
I guess it's that time of year, right?
Yeah. Well, we just got one more to do.
Oh, perfect. And that's going to be here in Kelowna.
That's right. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, yeah, Kelly and I, we stopped by the booth last year and we were looking through the photo album and stuff like that. Got pretty excited about the idea of making a trip to the coast eventually. What some of the things we saw in your photos, they're not only just amazing fishing, but wildlife. There's killer whales and all that kind of stuff. So it looks like a pretty all-around amazing experience.
Oh, it really is. That part of Vancouver Island's very remote, and the amount of wildlife there it's phenomenal. Like there's sea lion rookeries, rafts of sea otters. We have resident and transient orcas that come through.
Wow.
Humpbacks. Yeah, the list goes on.
That's great. So for anybody who's listening, just tell us a little bit about Rugged Point Lodge.
Well, we're a small lodge. We have 6 rooms, and we have 4 boats. We have 4 Grady White Gulfstreams. We do fishing trips. Our rooms are all ocean facing, and they all have their own bathroom and shower. And we have a gourmet chef on staff, and we have a kind of an open concept lodge dining area where everyone sits and has meals together.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds terrible.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. It's a very interesting place to operate because we're right on the edge. Like literally, we're 10 miles from the continental shelf.
Wow.
Matt,
you also have fly fishing opportunities, don't you?
Yeah, that's in the fall.
Okay.
And there's 3 main rivers that we fish, and they drain into the Cayuga Sand behind the lodge, and there's no road access into them. So we go up them in small Zodiacs with jet motors on them, and we get out and fly fish. It's all catch and release.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a very unique fishery.
Mm-hmm.
So how long have you been with the lodge, and how did you kind of fall into that role?
Well, I started with I had a charter boat, and I contracted for another lodge in Cayuga for a little bit and did some trips on my own. And I met my wife. She was running the general store and post office for her parents.
Oh, nice.
And then we bought a house from her parents, and eventually we tore down the house and built a lodge. And this will be our 6th year in the new building.
Nice.
Yeah, it was neat to have the opportunity to build our own lodge and then design it the way we wanted it.
Yeah, I bet. So I was poking around on your website there, And it said on there that your dad was sort of a famous fisherman back in the day. What's his story?
Well, that was my grandfather,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
And, well, he was well known around Victoria for his bucktailing, trolling flies for coho. And then back then, he had a commercial license on a sports fishing boat. And he was also the curator of birds and mammals at the Royal Museum. So his moonlighting was sports fishing, and back then you could legally sell the fish.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he did a lot of stuff. He was in Cayuga Sound in the 60s. My wife's grandparents remember him because he was trapping mice on all the islands. He was doing a study on the outer islands, all the way from the Triangle Islands off of Cape Scott to Solander, down in all the sounds down to Bamfield.
Wow. So obviously, the fishing has kind of been something that's strong in your family. Is that what got you into it? Was it just from your grandfather to your dad to you, or?
Well, yeah, my grandfather. I grew up in Victoria. We had a boat at Oak Bay Marina.
Oh, okay.
And that was there year round. And then in the summers, we'd usually do a trout fishing trip up to the interior somewhere, and then come back and then take his boat up to Bamfield. And so I did that, and then in high school I got a job on my uncle's trawler and went off and worked on the West Coast doing that. And then I went and worked for Oak Bay Marine Group and went up on their northern resorts, up on the Maribel and the Charlotte Princess back in the late 80s, early 90s, and got to be up at Langara, and those places were just getting lodges started and all that. It was really neat.
Well, I bet you've reeled in quite a few fish in your day then.
Actually, I've watched more people reel in fish than I have myself.
Right. I was going to say, obviously you've taken a lot of people out, for the first time. What's the sort of the most rewarding thing to see when you're going out with somebody that's doing it for the first time? Well,
just the joy, and how excited they are, about the whole experience. You get a lot of different first times. First time people being to Cayuga, or first time people catching a salmon or a halibut, or even the first time they've been out on the West Coast. So it's really fun to see people's, they're on their holidays, they're generally in a good mood, and to be able to provide a good trip is really nice.
Yeah, certainly.
How many parties do you have out there at one time? Is it kind of a one big group books a few days and then?
Well, those are always those happen where you get a group will take the whole lodge, and that's nice. And we have a lot of mixed groups where we'll have, a group of two and a boat will book a boat, or a group of three will book another boat, and sometimes two couples will book a boat. Yep. So we have mixed, but we're only up to 12 at a time max.
Okay.
Yeah, so it keeps it small, but we do a lot of trips. We start in beginning of June and go right through to Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, I imagine the mixed groups end up becoming good friends after a trip like that as well.
Yeah, it's most of the time it works out really well, and sometimes we even have groups now that met that way that come back together.
So if people are looking to book a trip with you guys, do you recommend, booking it well in advance, or what should people do if they want to get in touch with you?
Well, the best way, when you want to come, the best time is to get your dates, because the dates fill up. We're about 90% sold for this summer, so we have a little bit more open, but you want to get your dates so if you can go at a certain time you get them. Otherwise it becomes a little bit limited. But we always seem to have a boat here or a trip there available. We've never completely sold out.
Right. Well, that's good to know. So
so there's always a chance, and cancellations do happen.
Right. Mm-hmm. Where are most of your clients coming from? Do you get a lot of people from the States or all over Canada, or what's the biggest draw?
Well, it's interesting. Probably, Western Canada and the Pacific Northwest and the United States is kind of our main area. But, we've had people from as far away as Europe and Japan. But, our bread and butter is the Pacific Northwest and BC and Alberta.
Right.
And Alberta is honestly, it's slowed down a fair bit. It's too bad.
Yeah, fair enough. So everybody loves a good fishing story. Have you got one for us?
Oh, boy.
I'm sure you have lots. So you got one that stands out?
At the Drop it. Nah, you'd have to lead me a little bit because you get a lot of them. What kind of story do you want?
What do you think, Cal?
I was thinking more on the like Zodiac fly fishing trips. I wonder if something
We've
exciting.
got Brian Chan's following this, and we're talking fly fishing next.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Um, Brian, wonderful guy. I was at a trade show with Brian in California about a month ago, and I got the pleasure of going fly shopping with Brian Chen.
oh, nice.
Nice.
To do that. Okay, so we're fishing a very remote area of Vancouver Island, and I was up there with a client, guy that had fished with me for quite a few years, and I had left him alone. I said I was going to walk up this, small river. It was fairly open, and I started walking up. I went up about 100 yards, and I got a really uneasy feeling. And I'm very comfortable in the woods. Like we see bears and wolves and occasionally cougars out there. And anyway, so I walked back, and I got back down to where he was, and he was about 100 yards downstream of me, and this little stream was pouring in. And from back in the woods, we heard this terrifying scream. I didn't know what it was. And I went down to where he was. His eyes were white, and I was a little bit rattled. So we thought someone was playing a joke on us. So we got in the Zodiac, and we went up around the corner and didn't see anything, didn't see anyone. And so, we don't know what it was, but it sure gave us an uneasy feeling.
Jeez, I bet.
A ghost out there or something.
Yeah, Sasquatch.
Well, that's, I asked one of the local elders, and they said it was Bookmas, wild man of the woods, yelling at you.
Interesting.
So that's part of the local lore. So, I've never believed in such a thing, but,
Right.
you never know. You never know.
You
So there's a
never do.
fishing story.
There you go. Perfect. Actually, one other thing comes to mind. So you guys, I don't know if you're doing the same thing this year at the BC Interior Sportsman Show, but you raffled off a fishing trip, and we were talking to the guys that put on the show, and they said that a woman ended up winning it last year, and it sounded like she had the trip of a lifetime. Do you recall the details of that one, or?
We do. They had a great trip, and they were surprised at how nice it was, and which is great when you can exceed expectations on anything. That's always good.
So you guys doing the same thing this year?
Yeah, we're doing the same thing this year. We found it gave a lot of publicity to the lodge, and it was a lot of fun.
For sure.
And for a small show, I was really surprised at how well received we were there.
Yeah, for sure. You left an impact on Callie and I. We actually started this podcast just over a year ago now, and after we were talking about it on the pod, I think a number of times we brought up the thought of going to your lodge, actually. So you did certainly leave an impact on us. So
Cool.
yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll definitely have to keep in touch. And who's going to be running the booth there? Are you going to be there?
Yeah. It looks like it's me. I'm trying to find someone to help me. I found last year I was so busy that I didn't really get to talk to as many people as I'd like to.
Right.
So, yeah, no, it was a great show, and look forward to seeing you guys in person.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to be emceeing the Saturday show, so we'll definitely see you then. We'll stop by and say hello.
Yeah, you bet.
Perfect. Well, thanks for the quick chat. We look forward to seeing you on April 8th. We'll see you.
Yeah, you bet. And thanks. Say hi to Brian.
Yeah, you bet we will.
For sure.
Okay.
Take care, man.
See you then.
You bet.
Bye.
Bye.
Right on.
Yeah. I knew you know who Brian was. Everybody does.
That's great. I feel left out. I didn't know.
Yeah, man.
I didn't know the Brian Chan. So
You just gotta get that fly rod dusted off.
I know it's gonna happen. It'll happen.
You'll love it out there.
This
Have you caught a fish on a fly rod?
Nope.
Oh, geez, man, you're gonna be so addicted.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I grew up on the Columbia. Well, you know that.
Yeah. Like big trout in there.
So yeah, basically casting out of a boat, we'd go up and throw down the anchor, and yeah, you'd wait for all the hatches and stuff like that. And so there's obviously some similarities and some technique involved and all that kind of stuff. And
For sure.
when I was a kid, my dad actually had me tying flies and all that. So
Yep.
pretty pretty involved. The river moth was my specialty. I think that's the only one I did, but I did it very well.
Yeah. No, I think in terms of our experience with fishing, you're ahead of me in terms of spin and river fishing and all that kind of stuff.
We did a lot of stuff on a lot of trolling on Kootenai Lake too.
Yeah,
got some nice big rainbow in there, and there's kokanee and stuff there too.
Yep.
And then same up at in the Caribou on that lake there, Drury Lake. Do lots of fishing there too. So
yeah.
But yeah, never with the fly rod. My dad wasn't. He was an expert on the river and in the lakes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But not much for fly fishing. I think he obviously gave it a go. But
I found with fly fishing, it really depends on the area.
Yeah.
And if you're not fishing, you can't just pick any lake and expect to catch a big fish.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of guys who go up
fish.
to like Champion Lakes around where we grew up there.
Yeah, there's some good fishing up there. And we'll talk to Brian about it, but the interior BC has some of the most productive trout lakes for fly fishing.
Right.
Most of the lakes are only artificial fly only.
Right.
And some of them you can't even have a gas motor. It's all just electric. So
for sure.
Yeah, you whip out there in your fly rod or on your boat and get the fly rod out there, and even a little fish feels like a shark.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited. I've got the float tube and stuff. Actually, it's upstairs here. Yeah. So gotta get some air in that. I might have to track down some waders, but got the flippers and everything, man.
Yeah.
Ready to rock and roll.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm excited about bear again, though. I mean, that's the problem. But we can tie him in.
Oh, hunting bear, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what I was thinking is there's a lot of where these lakes are, it's kind of black bear country.
For sure.
So if you can loop in a camp out with some fly fishing and some bear hunting, it's
not a bad idea.
Be a good weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Let's give Brian Chan a call. Hey, Brian, how's it going? Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, Brian.
All right. Well, I don't know how much you know about Kelly and I. This is we've been waiting to do a fishing episode for quite a while now. We focus quite heavily on hunting, but we're very focused on being outdoors in general. So I haven't done any fly fishing. I spent a lot of time on the Columbia River and out on Kootenai Lake and stuff like that. But Kelly, on the other hand, is very excited about this interview and fly fishing because he spent some time out there and he's addicted and he's trying his best to get me out there. So it's going to happen this spring here. So we're both pretty excited to get out there. But
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky enough to live in this province. So it's pretty tough not to go out there and try to do as many things as you can. Fly fishing, for me, Mike and I started hunting about a few years ago, and I kind of started fly fishing at about the same time, just not as frequently. So I'm still pretty green too. But to have yourself on the show is much appreciated. You're pretty well known in the community.
We put out the word that we told guys that we had a fly fishing expert from BC. And we got like 5 different messages of people asking if it was Brian Chan. And so everybody's very excited to have you on. Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. So I guess the first things first, maybe we'll turn the mic to you so you can tell us about your background and experience as a biologist and a fly fisherman.
Well, I was very fortunate to have a father who was a very avid angler. And so I was hooked on fishing at a very, very young age. And that was fishing in the ocean, salmon fishing, basically fishing with live herring or herring strip down in the Gulf of Georgia out of Vancouver. And so the passion for fishing was instilled at a very young age. And I knew way back then that I wanted to do something with fish when I grew up. And so I was fortunate enough to get into finish high school and get into BCIT, and took a 2-year technical diploma program in fish wildlife management, and then got on with a federal government DFO for about a year and a half, working in various parts of the northern coast of BC, and then got fortunate to get a permanent job in Kamloops as a fisheries technician, working on small lakes, and went back and took a leave of absence after a year or so, and finished my degree at Simon Fraser University, my Bachelor of Science, and so allowed me to pursue a lifelong career as a fisheries biologist managing trout fisheries, or small lake trout fisheries, out of Kamloops. And so, and as I continued to work, my passion for fly fishing just continued at a rapid pace, and it was, as my wife said, she didn't know whether I was working or fishing because it was all the same.
Nice. Yeah, it's lucky.
Yeah, very lucky.
Yeah.
Very fortunate to have a career where you enjoy going to work every day. It's pretty hard to say that.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. Actually, we should mention that we had Matt on from Rugged Point Lodge just for a quick 10-minute conversation before we chatted with you here. So he wanted to say hi.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like you guys have met up a couple times.
Yeah, and we did a show in Pleasanton, California, a fly fishing show a few weeks ago, and then we'll see him in Kelowna, and then I'll be visiting Matt in the last week of September, shooting a couple episodes of Sport Fishing on the Fly, the TV show with Don and Dale Fresky. So we're really excited to do some river coho fishing with Matt.
Awesome. So what are you up to these days? Are you still in the biologist world, or are you?
No, I am supposed to be retired from that. I do a little bit of consulting, fisheries biology consulting, but more. I'm still quite active writing, guiding, and filming, doing TV shows, stuff like that, and that keeps me busy, very busy actually, and then I. Actually, not related to fishing at all. I kind of renewed my interest in hunting and have learned how to shoot a compound bow, and I've just gone crazy over that the last couple of years. And
awesome.
I find that extremely exciting, and a very similar challenge to fly fishing.
Yeah, for sure. Have you had any luck with the bow so far?
No, last season was my first real serious year to hunt, and I had several opportunities at both mule deer and whitetail, and actually took a shot at a nice 3-point whitetail buck, and 30 yards, and I had buck fever.
Oh no.
And after it took an hour to sneak up on him, and he dropped to his knees, and the shot went over his back. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was exciting, though.
Wow.
Very exciting.
Ninja whitetail, you saw it coming.
Yeah.
I should have, I made a few mistakes. He wasn't looking at me when I drew back, and then he just tilted his head towards me. And when I let the arrow go and he dropped, I could not believe it.
Yeah, there's something about whitetails. They're just ghosts.
Yeah, for sure.
Smart.
Well, exciting either way, and then you always learn something, right?
Oh yeah, no, we had a lot of fun, and looking forward to the 3D season this year. So I'm trying to get in as many of them as I can. I like them. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's something we need to do too. Actually, sounds like a blast. I haven't done it. Yeah.
Brian, we mentioned that you're going to be at the BC Interior Show this year.
Yeah, you bet.
I'm not sure I don't want to steal any of your thunder or anything, but one of the questions we had was what are your key challenges for fisheries of BC and kind of as we move forward with climate change and water levels and snowpack and all that kind of stuff. It seems like the amount of fish that are kind of moving upstream and are declining, and there seems to be a lot of trends that are happening and not in the right direction lately.
That's an excellent question, because things are changing out in our lakes, even our rivers, and whether you believe in climate change or not, or global warming, our weather patterns, short term and probably more long term, are changing, and we're seeing some very up and down changes in our weather patterns in terms of how long or how short our winter seasons are. And then when you compound or factor in that, at least in much of the southern and central interior regions of the province where some of our best trout lakes occur, we've had a lot of impact from mountain pine beetle. And the result of the pine beetle killing trees, and then subsequently a pretty significant harvest of trying to salvage those trees, it has had an impact on the watershed drainage systems that are affecting numerous small lakes. And so in lakes that have been heavily impacted by a lot more timber removal, timber harvesting, we're seeing a lot more nutrient loading in the lakes coming into the spring runoff, because we don't have as much of a buffer of live trees to absorb the nutrients. So we're seeing algae blooms in lakes that we never did before. We're experiencing changes in the species composition of aquatic plants that are growing in lakes. And we're getting lakes that are having some difficulty making it through winter. We're having some winter kill issues. And it all relates to the amount of runoff that's coming in. It's coming in faster, earlier, quicker. And it's got a lot of nutrients in it. And it is changing things, that's for sure.
Yeah, I noticed last spring it was there was a lot of snowpack, but it melted off in no time.
Yeah, really, really quick. So we're getting these very short, quick runoffs that just are sending a lot of nutrients into the lakes and creating problems later in the summertime with predominantly blue-green algal blooms.
Okay.
So things aren't, I mean, everything's changing all the time, but it doesn't help to have these, except for this year, we're more back to a more reasonable or normal winter and duration of ice cover. But the past 3 winters have been exceedingly early ice offs, month and a half, even more than what used to be so-called normal. And so, the lakes are ice-free longer. They're heating up. They've got a longer time to be exposed to the impacts of a blue-green algal bloom. And it's changing things. It's bringing on hatches earlier, although they'll be a little more normal this year. But I think anglers have to remember that everything in these lakes is driven by water temperature. So if they warm up quicker, the hatches happen, or insect emergence happen sooner, and also stratification happens sooner, and algal blooms come on sooner. So there's a lot of factors that go into the aquatic ecology of our lakes.
Yeah, one thing I don't know much about, but I find interesting, is sort of like the cycle of the lake throughout a 12-month period. And I think it might be different for different types of lakes, but like if you're, looking at a month to month, what is happening in the lake as far as the breakup of the ice, the turnover, and all that kind of stuff, and how does that impact everything in there?
Well, so we're specifically talking about the trout lakes that we like to fish up in the interior, and those lakes biologically they're known as or classified as eutrophic lakes.
Okay.
So these are shallow, a very shallow average mean depth. They've got lots of shallower littoral area. They have small creek systems running in and out of them, or often they're landlocked or only have seasonal flow coming in and going out, or not even going out in the fall, versus oligotrophic lakes, which are like Okanagan Lake, Skaha Lake, Shuswap Lake. the big lakes that have big rivers flowing in and out of them, they have limited shallow or littoral areas, and there's lots of deep water. So those two types of lakes are totally different from each other. We fish those small eutrophic lakes because they're shallow, they warm up, they're highly nutrient enriched, and the trout grow fast and have lots, and they can grow big in them. But having shallow water and minimal flushing rates where water is coming in and going out has its drawbacks. And all lakes, all these eutrophic, all these trout lakes that we fish, they do go through 4 seasons just like we go through. And right now we're at the tail end of winter on all our lakes in the interior. They're all still frozen, or except for the odd, very low elevation lake, there's a bit of open water on, but safe to say the 99.9% of them are still frozen.
Yeah.
So what's happening under the ice right now is we've endured 4.5 months of winter where there's been ice and snow on the lake, and there is no longer any photosynthesis occurring. So all that green plant life that grew on the shallow shoal or littoral zones of the lakes has been dying and decomposing all winter long. And during that decomposition process, it's been stripping oxygen out of the water. And there can come a point where there's so much what we call anaerobic decomposition of this plant matter that those lakes would run out of oxygen or not have enough oxygen to support fish life, which have the highest biological oxygen demand of living organisms in the water. So we can actually have a winter kill where the fish just physically run out of oxygen, and not enough for them. But there's lots for the invertebrates and bug life, but not enough for the fish. So what's happening right now is in a lot of lakes is the fish are not very happy because their oxygen levels are getting pretty low. What oxygen is in these lakes is very high in the water column, and they're kind of hoping, like we are, that ice-off's going to come soon and they can basically get some renewed oxygen in the water.
Right.
So what happens is the lake, say it makes it through the winter, and the ice now does come off the lake. So at the day the ice comes off the lake, there's oxygen in the upper layers of water, but not down deeper. So the fish are kind of trapped in a very shallow zone of shallow water, and that's why fishing in lakes at ice off is always much, much better in very, very shallow water, because that's where the oxygen is. And the fish can't leave that shallow water and go into deeper water because there may not be enough oxygen from all the decomposition that's occurred during the winter months. So that's the scenario at ice off, and we can have some great fishing, but it's often in shallow water. And usually within 10 to 14 days after ice off, the water temperatures near the surface of the lake will become similar to the bottom temperature of the lake, and the lake will turn over, and that's called spring turnover. So when water is uniformly the same temperature and ideally at 4 degrees centigrade or 39 degrees Fahrenheit, the water will sink into itself. It'll sink through the water column, and you add a bit of wind and the entire water column mixes. So you might have had a very clear lake before the start of turnover, and hours later it's murky and there's a lot of detritus or decomposing plant matter suspended in the water column. That's a lake that's turning over. And what that turnover does, it allows the lake to mix, and the fish aren't happy when a lake mixes, because that narrow band of oxygenated water is now mixed throughout the water column. And so the levels drop of oxygen in the lake and the fish are very dour. But 3 to 4 or 5 days after turnover, the water starts to clear up. A mixing still occurs, and now the lake becomes supercharged with oxygen from top to bottom, because the bottom waters are brought up to the surface and there's an exchange at the air-water interface. And so ideally after turnover, the entire lake is supercharged with oxygen, and that carries the lake through the spring and into the midsummer months. And so spring turnover is a necessary ecological event that ensures the fish have enough oxygen and all the invertebrates and other aquatic life in the lake as well. So those spring months is when we get the warming water temperatures, which drive the insect hatches, which the trout really focus on in our small trout lakes. But by about early to midsummer, it's getting pretty warm in the interior, and that constant sunlight and energy penetrating through the water, it warms those upper layers of water, usually down to about 5 to 7 meters in depth. You'll have the energy of sun penetrating down. And what will form during the summer months is called a thermocline. And that thermocline is an invisible barrier that forms like a sheet of plastic going across the lake. And it forms usually 5 to 7 meters down, depending on the clarity of the water. And that's telling you the maximum extent of sunlight energy. So if you've ever been on Okanagan Lake or Shuswap Lake and dove off the back of a boat and dove down, you'll go through warm water, and then if you go down far enough, you'll hit a layer of icy cold water, and you've hit the thermocline. And in small lakes, thermoclines get very well established, and they become a barrier to mixing, so that during the summer months, in a lot of small lakes, the wind can blow all at once, and it won't mix the water below that thermocline, which is established between 5 and 7 meters deep. And so in a lot of small lakes, there's not an accumulation or an increase in oxygen below the thermocline during the summer months. And so in some lakes, the oxygen levels may drop to a point where there's not quite enough for trout, and that's why they'll often see them on a fish finder. You'll see the fish stacked just along the thermocline where the water's cool and more oxygenated. We have to remember that trout are cold-blooded, and cooler water supports more oxygen, and trout are a cold-blooded fish species, and they need that cooler oxygen. That's why in the heat of summer, it's hard to catch fish in really shallow water on the shoals because it's too warm, and the fish can't come on there because water's warm, less oxygen, and although they'd love to be on there feeding, they have to wait till nighttime when the water temperatures drop on the shoals and drop enough so that there's more oxygen and the fish can come back on and feed. So our lake now has made it through the summer months, and then the fall months, air temperatures start to cool, and they'll cool to a point late fall where the warmer upper layers of water will cool down to meet water temperatures of the deeper depths of the lake. And when they get close to 4 degrees, again, centigrade or 39 Fahrenheit, the lakes will mix again with a heavy wind, and you'll get what was a clear lake again, just like in the spring, will become murky and for a few days, and that continual mixing of the water column will supercharge the lake with oxygen again to set it up for winter. You want to go into winter fully recharged with oxygen. Otherwise, you're going to run into trouble in terms of fish survival. So that's kind of that's kind of the 4 seasons that occur in a lake. And anglers really do need to understand that because it does dictate where the fish could live and where you should be fishing at certain times of the year.
Right. So spring is coming in quick.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm a fly fisherman. I'm going to go fish, I don't know, maybe some higher elevation lakes in April, May. I'm assuming if I show up to a lake and it's looking murky, I might want to go to a different one.
Yeah, if you show up at a lake and it's murky and your friends were there the week before and said, oh, it was crystal clear, we had great fishing, you got 2 choices. You go down in elevation and catch a lake that's already turned over, or you go higher in elevation and catch a lake that hasn't turned over yet.
Okay. So if I find a lake that either or, it's looking clear, well, let's go with the one that's already turned over.
Yeah.
What would be your key spring tactics?
If it's already turned over, you're going to be, and depending on water temperature, it's going to be in the mid to high 40s by then, or Fahrenheit, and into, so that's like 6, 7, 8 degrees Celsius. You may start to see the first cronmet hatch of the year, but what I would always start off with first is with a leach pattern. And I would be fishing the shoal areas, water less than 17, 18 feet in depth. That's where the fish are going to be. They're going to be in the shallow water because that's where the biggest grocery store is, from 20 feet of water or less.
Okay.
And it would be leeches. I would be fishing them under an indicator or casting and retrieving them on a sinking line of depending on the depth you're in. It could be an intermediate sinking line. It could be a type 1, 2, type 3, type 4 full sinking line.
Okay.
But what I wouldn't be doing is going out into the middle of the lake in 30 feet of water and fishing.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm still in the, I would call it the trolling phase of fly fishing. I'm going to try to take some lessons here on casting, but I find the trolling in some of these lakes, which can be difficult. What can people expect when they kind of move from that phase onto the casting and chronomid fishing? It just seems like the trolling can be very hit and miss.
Trolling can be very good at certain times of the year, but really, if you want to become an effective stillwater fly fisher, it means anchoring and learning about the different aquatic insect hatches that are occurring, and let the fish come to you, because many of these bugs that these fish feed on are not zipping around at high speeds under the water. They're very slow, and they're in shallower water. Oftentimes, shallow water, so shallow you couldn't troll through anyways. You'd be getting hung up on the bottom with your fly in the vegetation. So anchoring your boat and learning a basic roll cast with a floating line, and then putting an indicator on, and still just using a simple roll cast, you can catch lots of fish. In the majority of situations, you do not need to be casting 60, 70, 80 feet out. You're going to catch lots of fish if you can get 25 to 30 feet out from your boat.
Okay, so under the indicator, that's not just chronomids that you can kind of brush along the bottom. That would be leeches and anything like that? You can fish chronomids, you can fish shrimp, you can fish leeches, mayflies, damselflies, caddis pupa, all under an indicator extremely effectively. That might be the next step. I'll try that.
I mean, where the easiest way to build confidence, and when you're casting, anchored and casting, excuse me, is to fish during a good chronomid hatch.
Right. Because
that is the most abundant, diverse, and prolonged insect emergence, and fish in lakes, and fish love to eat them.
Right.
Because it's an easy food source and there's lots of them. And for the angler, it just means really you're still fishing. You're roll casting out or casting out with an indicator, and your chronomid is set below the indicator, so it's dangling down there a foot off the bottom, and you watch that indicator. Okay. And if you've got the right size and a close resemblance to color of what the real bugs are, those fish are going to come up and eat it, and you can catch lots of fish.
Chronomid seems like it's specific to just stillwater fly fishing. Is that accurate? And can we give just a brief description of what a chronomid is for folks that aren't familiar?
Okay, so first, chronomids live in both flowing and standing waters.
Okay.
The biggest species of chronomids will always be found in standing waters. And the more productive the lake, the more rich it is in terms of nutrients, and then in the benthic in the bottom substrate, the more diverse the species in both sizes and colors. So chronomids are midges, or buzzers as they're called. They're called midges in the States and buzzers in the UK. They're a two-winged dipteran insect that, as an adult, the females don't bite. So the adult looks similar to a mosquito, except they don't have a biting pointy proboscis to bite you. They're they are the most common aquatic insect living in our still waters. There's over 2,500 species of chironomids or midges that have been identified in fresh waters, flowing and standing in North America. And so that means they come in a wide variety of different sizes and colors. So we do have midge hatches that occur in rivers, and fish do feed on them, but they're often a very, very small, and they can be a challenge to imitate, but trout do eat them because there's lots of hatches. But there's 100-fold more hatches occurring in lakes, small lakes.
Right.
And the trout do gorge on them because there's not just a few of them emerging, there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them coming off at the same time. And the fish just go along and open and close their mouth and take in a few more every time they breathe. So chironomids have a complete life cycle: an egg, larva, pupa, and adult. The larva stage of the chironomid is often referred as a bloodworm because the larva species is often blood red in color, and hence the term bloodworm. But they most commonly either maroon or blood red in color, or they're shades of green or brown. And they live in the mud water at the bottom of the lake, in the mud water interface. So they build little tubes at the bottom of the lake, and it could be 5 feet deep or it could be 85 feet deep. And they live down there, and they stick their heads out and they feed on detritus, decomposing plant matter, which there's lots of organic matter down there. And as they mature, they grow and grow, and when they're fully developed, by late spring usually, they'll seal themselves in their larval tube, and the larvae, which looks like a segmented worm, and up to about an inch in length, they will seal themselves in that tube and transform from that segmented worm into the pupa inside that tube at the bottom of the lake in 5 or 85 feet of water, anywhere in between. It takes about 7 to 10 days for the pupa to fully develop, and then it'll break out of that old larval tube and then slowly ascend vertically to the surface of the lake to hatch. And as it ascends, it traps gases between its body and its cuticle or its shuck, and it gets shiny in appearance, gets very silver in appearance as it goes up through the water column, gets to the surface, and that's how it buoys its way up to the surface. As soon as it hits the surface, a split forms on the back of its thorax, and the adult chironomid crawls out, flies away, mates. Females come back that evening or the next morning and drop their eggs in the water, and they die. So the adult life cycle is very short. They don't feed. They have no feeding mouth parts. It's the larva stage that on some of the bigger chironomid species can be 2 years. In most species, they have a 1-year life cycle. So just imagine you're anchored on a favorite lake in the Okanagan or the Kamloops area. You're in 16 feet of water, and the chironomids start to hatch. All hundreds of thousands of pupa are breaking out of their larval shucks and elevating through the water column, all around your boat, all over the bay you're in. And the fish are just swimming around. They can't swim away from them. These chironomids are helpless, and they just gorge on them. You have to remember that trout, any fish species, any animal, feeds so that it expends the least amount of energy for the greatest return of protein. And because they need their energy for other life activities. So for trout and chironomids, they just, as I mentioned earlier, open and close their mouth, and every time they do it, they take in a few more, filter pupa through their gill rakers and down the hatch.
So what would be, I guess you have to watch the top of the water and try to find some shucks and match the color and the size, I guess. But what's your favorite chironomid pattern?
Well, it's all like you just said, it's all about being observant. You've got to be looking in the water, and you'll see the pupa coming up, or you'll see their cast shucks Or you'll see the adults, and if you got a little aquarium net, you can dip them out of the water and look at the size and color, and then go into your fly box and see if you can match it. But overall, the most common chironomid pupil color is black, and we tie pupil patterns, so a black body with a red wire rib, silver wire rib, gold wire rib, or a holographic red rib or holographic silver rib. And the ribbing does two things. It distinguishes the segmentation in the pupil body, and if it's a brighter color, it adds a bit of flash to represent that trapped gas that's under its shock. And so you can get very creative in your fly tying to get very realistic patterns that you have to think about. Well, if there's hundreds of thousands of real ones, why are they biting yours when it's got a chunk of metal and a sharp point hanging out of it? It's because it's close enough, or might be just slightly bigger, or it's moving slightly funny differently compared to the real ones, and the fish just come over and suck it in just like it's candy. And that's what makes it so exciting.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is fascinating. You're painting a pretty good picture of, just the whole lake in general, from the bottom all the way to the top.
Yeah.
You get me excited, but I'm visualizing myself kind of showing up to a lake with my float tube and my fly rod and a big whack of flies, and just looking out the lake and having no idea where to start.
I was just going to say that, like talking to Brian right now, I feel like a pretty good fisherman.
Yeah.
But once you're out there,
Yeah.
actually consciously putting all this knowledge into action,
Yeah.
it's kind of like golf, right? You get a golf club in your hand and all of a sudden you can't remember anything you read.
So that's what I was going to say is, like, obviously experience is the best thing you can have, but for somebody who's going out there without a mentor and with very little knowledge, what kind of advice do you have for somebody?
Well, I would take advantage of your local fly shop, if you got one, and in your area, and you can certainly get good information from there and get set up with the right equipment. And there's a lot of good books, videos, YouTube videos that would explain a lot of things. And then you've got to, when you're on the water, you've got to see where other anglers are fishing. See if they've got a floating line on and a strike indicator, and kind of figure and look at how shallow they're fishing, and if it's in the spring months and they're catching lots of fish, more often than not they're going to be getting them on chironomids, or at least how deep they're fishing, and so you want to be in similar type depth of water because there's obviously something hatching or some food source that's active in those often shallower depth zones. And so you got to do some basic deductions, by watching birds on the water, see if there's gulls or nighthawks or swallows all flying around and dipping down on the surface of the lake in a particular bay of a lake. Well, there's obviously an insect hatch going on and you need to get over there. Or if you get out onto the lake in your float tube, your pontoon boat, and you're looking around and the only place you see fish jumping or rolling around is in one little area, well, you better get over there because those are active fish. And even if they're not feeding those particular fish, there could be other ones that are feeding in that same general area. So you have to watch the environment you're in, look around, look for fish that are actively moving is a key point for anglers to consider when you're fishing lakes.
We get tons of emails, and a lot of them are related to gear. So somebody's thinking about getting to fly fishing for the first time. Obviously going to your local fly shop, like you said, is a good place to start. But what do you recommend for first time purchases as far as getting into the sport? You don't want to spend too much money if you're not sure if you're interested in it or not, but
maybe in BC.
Yeah.
But certainly for lake fishing, you can buy a fly rod reel loaded with backing and a floating line that's 9 feet long, and it's for 5 or 6 weight line. You can purchase all that for under $200,
Nice.
sometimes less than $150, and you're ready to fish. You just need some leader, some tippet material, and some strike indicators, and a small selection of basic chironomids and leeches and shrimp, and you're good to go. So you can get started relatively inexpensively and then grow from there, because you're never going to be happy with just one fly rod.
Right.
Yeah, I think people get intimidated going into their local fly shop. It's one of those sports. It's like fishing, but it's like the manual instead of the automatic version.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see how people be intimidated to go in there and talk, but I find most of the fly shops are more than happy to talk to you they'll sit there and talk to you for hours about fly fishing. They love it.
Yeah, and you have to start somewhere, but you don't have to spend any enormous amount of money to get started for lake fishing. Like I said, $200 you could get you on the water.
I've got another question about spring flies. Is a water boatman an option?
For spring?
Yeah.
Yeah, water boatmen and back swimmers, which are both air-breathing hemipteran insects, they survive the winter under the ice, even though they're air breathers, because the ice isn't like a smooth sheet of glass. There's air pockets under there, and that's what they live in all winter. Okay. So right at ice hop, there's always water boatmen and back swimmers flying around. They're happy to be able to get some exercise, so they fly and then they dive back down, and so they can be good as well. But usually you would normally put them on if you see them swimming in the water, or if you see fish boiling in shallow water and chasing something, very aggressive rises. If it's early spring, that's what they're chasing, water boatmen and back swimmers, because there are no big insects hatching.
Yeah, that was the one that always mystified me a little bit, but I haven't necessarily spent enough time out there to see a water boatman or a back swimmer type hatch.
Yeah, well, they're active right at ice off early spring, and then they're again very active in the early fall when they go on mating and swarming flights, and the fish will gorge on them again. And when they're on boatmen and back swimmers, you'll see these massive rise forms and swirling, slashing activity at the surface of the lake, and that's a signal that should tell you that they're probably on back swimmers, and they could be anywhere in the lake. They could be in the middle of the lake, or they could be in 3 feet of water, because when the boatmen and back swimmers fly and drop into the lake, they could be anywhere.
Okay. Well, yeah, before we wrap up, where can folks find you or contact you?
Well, I'll definitely be at the Kelowna show, so I'm hoping lots of Okanagan people will attend the Sportsman Show in Kelowna coming up in a few weeks. And I've got on my website, I've got lots of good articles on there at riseformflyfishing.com. I've got an archive of articles on how to fish, a variety of different techniques, and which is very informative. And if you go on YouTube and Google my name and fly fishing, you'll see lots of shows that I've done with different TV shows in around the area, and other tying clips I've got. There's lots of tying clips that I've done, fly tying, that are on YouTube as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of books and videos out there for sure.
Where are your books available all over? Because we got listeners all over North America. So have you got books that are available out there, or can they order from your website?
I've got, there's a couple books that are still available out there, but the one that it really has done well for us, it's a book I co-authored with Skip Morris and Chan, Fly Fishing Trout Lakes. It's currently out of print, and we're just getting another print going this spring. So hopefully we'll have that book back on the bookshelves in fly shops and other stores this summer. And then I've got a 2-volume set of DVDs that I did with Phil Rowley on chironomid fishing, and it's called Conquering Chironomids, and there's 2 volumes, and they're available at fly shops, and it's everything you want to know and how to do it on how to catch fish on chironomids, which, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the best ways and most effective ways to fish lakes. Not only in the spring, but chironomids do come off well into the summer months. And even in late fall, when the lake's getting super cool and there's no chironomid hatches, you can still catch them on chironomids because they've seen so many of them during the previous 4 to 5 months that they'll often eat them late in the fall.
Nice. I can definitely vouch for the Fishing on Trout Lakes book. I picked up a copy of that on Amazon, just a used copy. Great book.
Yeah, no, we've got to get it back out there.
Perfect. Well, yeah, let us know when it's available. Again, we'll make sure we let people know. And we'll put links up to your site on our website. What days are you going to be speaking at the BC Interior Sportsman Show?
I'll be there Friday evening doing 2 presentations there. One is a PowerPoint presentation on, I believe I'm doing one on lake biology and how understanding it will make you a better angler.
Great.
And then doing a casting demonstration, which will involve casting tips as well as retrieves, how to retrieve your different flies. Perfect. And then I'll be doing a similar talks again on Saturday. So
Excellent.
I'll be there Friday evening and Saturday, all day Saturday.
Good. Kelly and I will be emceeing on Saturday, so we'll be bringing you up on stage. Look forward to meeting you.
Yeah.
Yep. It's great. It should be a great show.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
I'll definitely attend the casting lesson. Should I bring my own rod or?
No, it's I'm just going to be. They've got a little area that they've cordoned off that you can. I'll just be demonstrating.
Okay.
How to cast, and yeah, certainly if I can get the rod in your hand as well there and give you some pointers.
Nice.
Perfect. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you there, and I'm excited to get on the water now, and we're probably going to have more questions for you down the road, so maybe we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, it's great talking to you guys, and look forward to meeting you down in Kelowna.
Yeah, you bet.
For sure.
Thanks for your time, Brian.
All right, bye for now.
Cheers.
See ya.
Brian Chan.
Great guy.
I felt like we just talked to Aquaman.
Yeah, man, he knows a lot about lakes.
It's amazing, like, to hear somebody that knows so much about what's going on underneath the lake, because for humans in general, we're just on top, right? But there's so much stuff going on below. And when he's talking about the life cycle of those chironomids and the eggs and how they progress, and it's fascinating. And the life cycle of the 4 seasons of the lake. I find that maybe that's common knowledge. Maybe I'm just an idiot, but I thought that was fascinating.
I don't know if that's common knowledge.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot going on down there.
It's interesting to me with the fly fishing because I think historically, like, the legacy of fly fishing has always been, or at least it was in a lot of schools, the dry fly and intimidating the adult and then watching the fish come up and grab the fly and all that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what a lot of fly fishers, that's all they do, right? Is they just fish dry flies.
Right.
But up in BC where we have these stillwater lakes, like 90% of the food that the fish are eating are actually below the surface.
Yeah.
So if you're a hardcore dry fly fisherman, then go for it. But I get the sense that folks like Brian and Phil and Skip Morris and all those guys, they're fishing mostly nymph patterns and fishing under the surface because that's where all the food is. Yeah.
Interesting. It's a whole other bag of tricks there. Holy.
For sure.
It's intimidating. I'm not going to lie.
It is intimidating. And I think, I mean, you can go out there. It's pretty tough to fish from shore on a lot of these lakes.
Yeah.
You kind of need a way to get out there. Not just waders, but I would recommend a float tube.
Yeah.
I do have a 12-foot boat, but it's a V-hull, which makes it a little bit hard for fly fishing.
Yeah.
But if you got a way to get out there, make sure you have a couple anchors so the wind doesn't spin you around in circles.
Right.
That's kind of the one addition I made this year.
Good point.
And then you can go out there and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hopping in the float tube. When you're in the tube, you just feel like you're a bit more connected to the water.
Yeah, definitely. I like it in float tube too.
Yeah.
Especially in a small lake. If you get into bigger lakes, it gets a little bit I mean, you got to focus on an area, I think.
Right.
But yeah, I like float tubes.
Sweet. Cool.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it this year.
What was beer number 2?
Let's see.
My bladder's going to burst any minute here.
Postmark, fresh hop. And where is this? So we've had a couple postmarks on the show.
Yeah, we've had a number of them.
I know it's from Vancouver.
It's Vancouver
Just a
Island,
second here. Vancouver, BC. Yeah, that's all it says. Vancouver, BC.
Nice.
That's a good beer.
Yep. All of their, I haven't been able to find it again. It was the spruce tip that we had.
Yeah, I've been looking for that one too.
So good. Maybe it was just a limited run or something, but Postmark,
maybe
if
they
you're
ran
listening.
out of tips.
Yeah, make that again. That was delicious. Well, before we wrap it up, Cal, anything you want to add to this episode?
No, I think it's just, it's great to talk to somebody like Brian that spent his whole life doing something he loves.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just encourage people to come to this sportsman show and listen to folks like that.
Yeah.
Especially, well, obviously if you're into fly fishing, but yeah, just interesting folks.
Let's put it this way. I'm very grateful to be doing this podcast because we get to directly talk to like some of the biggest names in the sport so far here, man. It's pretty amazing. And I'm glad that we can record this and share it with everybody.
Yeah. It's nice to talk to folks that are actually from Canada, but also from BC.
Yeah, for sure.
Like an hour away from us, right?
We got an email, and that was some of the feedback we got was to have more guests from British Columbia and Canada, but we'll definitely do our best. But there's so many people out there to talk to, and I want to keep it open to a wide range of people. So
for sure,
I'm very proud to be Canadian, but there's a lot of talented and knowledgeable people outside of our country as well. So you'll expect a mix of different folks here. So
definitely.
But yeah, I think we'll leave it on that note.
Definitely. Thanks for listening.
Happy fishing. Cheers, guys.
See ya.